While going over the new features in .NET 5 and WebAPI in particular, I was reintroduced to a tool that is really helpful for working with APIs. In this video, we're going to be looking at HttpRepl, a tool that quickly and easily allows us to test our APIs. We'll look at how to set it up, how to use it with our APIs, and how to integrate it into Visual Studio. Now, if this is the first video you've watched of mine, my name is Tim Corey, and it's my goal to make learning C# easier. I provide videos twice a week here on YouTube to help you grow as a developer. I also have a full set of training courses on IamTimCorey.com. I encourage you to check out all the resources I have to offer. So let's get started by creating a quick API in Visual Studio. So I have Visual Studio 2019. We're going to create a new project, and this will be a ASP.NET Core web application. And we'll choose this as, just call it Sample API and Sample API app. We'll hit create. And the purpose here is not to go really deep into an API, but rather to see how HttpRepl can really help us navigate our API and work with it in testing. Let's choose .NET Core 5.0. Web API will not add authentication. We will encourage the HTTPS, but no Docker support. Yes to Open API. This is important. So make sure you have Open API included. That will help HttpRepl understand what the structure is of our API. We hit create. And once this is done, it's going to create for us a really simple sample. And that is under controllers, weather forecast controller. And right now we have just a get command, HTTP get, and that will return a sample of weather forecasts. I want to add one thing to this, and that's a post command. So HTTP post. Now, if you're not familiar with HTTP verbs and how they work, get is kind of doing what it says. It's getting data from the API. So you're doing a read action. Post is like a write action, where you're sending data to the API, usually written to a database. So HTTP post, public, action results, and we'll say this is post. And what we're going to do is we're going to take in one weather forecast item. Call it data. And then, because normally post, you write data. And we'll just say return, okay, and pass back the data you passed in. Now, this is not typically what you do in a post action because typically you'd be doing work here. But we're just saying, okay, we got the data. And by the way, that's the data we got, just to kind of verify that the data coming back is the data that you posted, to make sure that the API actually got it. So that's our really tremendously crazy API. Really, it's just a basic sample. If you run this just to see it, since we do have Open API installed, it will show us the structure of our project. And that looks like this. We have a get, where if we hit try out and execute, it will, I'll zoom in here. Here's the data that would come back. Now that data will be different every time. We can also collapse this and go to post and say try out. And we'll say that the temperature is 10 and the summary is chilly. And we'll hit execute. And it says that we got 200, which means success. That's the okay response. And there is the date you passed in. There's the temperature in Celsius. The temperature in Fahrenheit is a calculation. Therefore, we didn't have to put 49 in. It just got calculated based upon the 10 degrees Celsius. And the summary is chilly. So that's passed back to us that, yes, I got the data, and here is the resulting object that we created. So all is good there in our post. Let's zoom back out here. So that's if you want to test via the the Swagger interface, which is a great interface, but there are other options that might be even quicker. And that's where HttpRepl comes in. So let's start by going, let's shut this down and we'll go over to, I have open here the GitHub repository for HttpRepl. So it's github.com/.net, that's spelled out .net/HttpRepl. I'll have this in the description of this video as well. So just go to the description and get this link directly. So in here, this project is the HttpRepl project. So REPL, it kind of sounds like rebel. So I'm trying hard to enunciate REPL, but just so you know, that's what I'm saying there. That's the name of this project, which stands for read, eval, print, and loop. And what this is a really simple little command line utility to test out an API. So the first thing you have to do is install it. And this is a command line install at the global level. So what you're going to do is you're going to install something on the .NET itself. Let's zoom in here a little bit. On .NET itself and say I want to install a tool. I want to install it globally. And this is the tool. It is from Microsoft, so this is something you can trust, yada, yada. But you just basically copy this command right here. You open up your terminal or your command prompt or whatever you have, and you would just say .NET install, .NET tool install, which that's what that says right there, .NET tool install -global. I'm just gonna say .NET tool -g list because I already have it installed. Whoops. I think it's .NET tool list -g. There we go. Had it backwards. But this is going to show me what I have installed. So I have .NET Entity Framework installed, the 3.1.7 version of the command line options. I also have the Microsoft .NET HttpRepl at version 5.0.0. Now, if you decide, so if you run this command, let's just copy this command and you come in here and you paste it in. You paste it, well, I didn't have it copied. Anyways, you paste it in, you run it, it's gonna install some things, and then you try it out and you go, you know what? I'm not gonna use this. I wanna get rid of it. No problem. What you would do is run the same exact command, only say uninstall instead of install. That's all you need to do, you're good to go. You can also do .NET tool, I believe it's -h for help, and that will tell you, okay, install, uninstall, or if there's a new version out there, update. It'll update the tool. Also list and so on. So this is how you would install it on the global command prompt for .NET. And what this is basically a NuGet package, but it's going to be installed on .NET itself on your computer, just your computer. And then .NET will have access to this wherever you are. So now you can actually run HttpRepl. I'm going to show you how to do that first by launching the API. So let's go back to our API and we're going to launch this. And now the browser is going to open to that URL. I'm going to copy just the URL, not the /swagger/index. So copy just that piece. Come back over here and say HttpRepl space, and then that URL. I hit enter, and now it's connected to that URL. So it starts disconnected, and then it connects the URL, and now my command prompt says, where instead of like C:\\, it's saying HTTPS localhost 44388, which is my API. So it's like I'm connected as if it's a drive, but instead it's a API, which means that all the commands you would use, or the basic ones you would use for getting directory and lists and all kind of stuff, work. So dir for directory gives us weather forecast, which has a get and a post, and the root, which has nothing. Now, obviously, if this was a more complex API with lots of different endpoints and lots of different actions on those endpoints, then there'd be a bigger list here. But we only have one option here, weather forecast, but we do have both a get and a post. So let's do this. Let's say get, G-E-T, space, weather forecast. And that just returns for me the JSON array of data that would be returned, that is returned whenever you call the get command on the API. Really quick, really simple. So it's probably even a little simpler than going to Swagger. Now, here's the really cool thing. Let's do a clear here. And again, we can do a list, ls, or dir, either one works. We can also say cd for change directory, weather forecast. And now we're in the / weather forecast path. Now I can say just get, and it gets that same call. And if I want to change out of this, let's clear. I can do cd ... and that takes me back to the root level. Now I can do, if I do get, it's gonna say, yeah, there's nothing here because that's a 404 not found, because there's no get command right on the root. So again, you can clear a screen, CLS or clear. But what about calling that post command? So again, if we do a dir, we've got the weather forecast, let's even cd into it. We got the get and the post. Get is easy because it just gets us data back. We're not sending any data in. But what about post? How do we get the information to send the post? Do we have to format some kind of funky, weird thing? Well, I'm not going to say post. It's going to open up VS Code. It puts in here for me the, let's see if I can zoom in here. There we go. It puts in for me the basic structure of the object. I just need to put, let's put 20 and we'll say warm. I hit Control S to save. I close this out and now it returns the object to me. It says you passed in 20, that's 67 degrees Fahrenheit, and the summary is it's warm. So it's gone to the API with a post command with the data and posted up. Very quick and very easy. But how did I get VS Code to open? Now I have VS Code already installed on my machine, and I use it for any type of quick modification of files like, HTML files or CSS files, those kind of things, really quick and easy viewing of files. So I decide I want to use VS Code with HttpRepl, which is not the default. In fact, there is no default. So let's talk about how to set that up. Clear the screen. We're going to say pref. We're just going to enter. So I type it pref and nothing else. And this is okay. Here's all the preferences you have installed on this version of HttpRepl. Well, we have colors. You can change all of these. We have current preferences for protocol status and so on. But then down here, I have two more that you might not have. One is editor.command.default and one is editor.command.default.arguments. These are ones that I set myself. So let's talk through how would I set one of these values. Well, what I would do is say, because it actually shows you right up here. So I would say pref set, the setting is editor.command.default. Let's set arguments. Arguments. And then space, and then in double quotes, I would say -n-w. I'm gonna switch the order of those two around. I hit enter, and it seems like it just, eats it. But if I were to do a pref again, notice it's now -n-w instead of before it was -w-n. So I set the value of my arguments. Now you can also clear them out by setting an empty value. So if I were to do this and then look at pref again, you notice there is no pref at all because I wiped it out. So let's put that back so that I have something. There we go. And this is the path to where my VS Code is installed. You would need to find that in your machine, but this would probably be the same path. So program file / Microsoft space VS space code / code.exe. This is where VS Code is installed on my machine. Again, you could choose to make it Notepad++, or you could choose to make it Notepad, or there's a lot of different editors you could choose, but I have chosen VS Code. I think it lends for some nice features doing so. And I wanted to give command line arguments to VS Code, because there's a couple things I want to tweak in there. First of all, I want it to be -n, which is a new window. And what that'll do is, even if I have VS Code open, it's going to open a new copy of VS Code with just that one file I need to modify. That way I can save it and close it and not have to worry about, oh no, I closed my open VS Code. The other one is -w. That's going to wait for that file to be changed and closed before it processes the saving of the data. That's kind of important for VS Code, so just make sure you do -w. But that's it. The editor.command.default and editor.command.default.arguments. You set those two values if you're using VS Code. If you're using Notepad, I think you can just use the actual default. I don't think you need any command line arguments, but you could look into that. That would be specific to Notepad, not something specific to HttpRepl. So that's how you set up HttpRepl to run on the command line. But you know, it's kind of a pain to do this. Like if you, let's exit out of here. If you do HttpRepl and then paste in your URL every time, that's kind of a multi-step process. Open the command prompt, do this, paste it in, run it. There's gotta be a better way, right? Well, of course there is. And that is, let's close this down. If we want to, we can set this up as a browser. So right now I have Chrome as my web browser of choice. I could choose Firefox instead, or Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge. But I can come down here and say browse with. And in this dialog, I can add a new thing to browse with. So I hit add. I'm going to choose HttpRepl. You're going to find this on your machine. On my machine, it's under c:/users/me. That's my username, me. So for you, this first part probably the same, but then you have to find your username. And then /.net/tools/HttpRepl.exe. Okay, and you can do the browse here and find that. Notice that's the path I'm in, users me .net tools. So you can browse to it and find it, but that's where that tool is located for my machine. Now, give it a friendly name. I'm just going to call it HttpRepl. Hit OK. And now it's in my list of browsers. So I can hit cancel. And in here now, if I go to web browsers, I can choose HttpRepl instead. So by doing that, I can now hit run in IIS Express, and it's going to open up the .NET tools to HttpRepl. It's going to log in right into my API. And I can do a dir and say get weather forecast. And it gives me a list of weather forecast. So that's how you can very quickly use this to debug and diagnose your API without having to dive into, even the full version of Swagger and try that out. You can just use this and have it quickly do, dive into whatever API you want, send data to it using VS Code, and so on. So I thought this was a nice alternate tool to use to debug and test your API. You don't have to fire up a full version of Postman if you don't want to. There's times when you do, especially if you want to save those commands in Postman and have it, replay those commands, kind of like a unit test almost, where you're doing it automatically. But for really quick and easy testing, either Swagger on the front end or using HttpRepl using the command prompt are both great options for very quickly testing out what's going on in your API. I just want to point out that yes, this is doing just like anything else would. So if I were to run this app and have a breakpoint here, yes, it does hit the breakpoint. You can even inspect the data if we did a post and so on. So everything works like you would expect. It's just a different client to call your API. If you want to get out of that, this little arrow next to IIS Express, drop that down and choose go back to Chrome for your browsing experience. So that's all there is for HttpRepl. I don't want to belabor this point. I just wanted to show you that as an alternate way of working your API. Let me know if you have any questions about it, or if you have any tricks and tips to working with HttpRepl, and let me know down in the comments below. All right, thanks for watching. As always, I am Tim Corey.